Hi, my name is Natalia Foley. I'm an attorney and a therapist, and today we'll be discussing issue of bias in regard to Chinese population of the United States. Today I would like to talk to you about ancient Chinese philosophy such as Daoism and Confucianism. Ancient Chinese philosophy is the foundation of Chinese mentality, and we really don't know much about it. We really don't understand it well, and that can be seen in many statements that you can read online or watch on our TV when our politicians, our hosts of different shows saying China wants this, China wants that. Perhaps that's what they think, but it's not necessarily true. Why it's important to us? Because in the United States we have 5.6 million of Chinese population according to our Census Bureau, and the chances are high that in your therapy room, one or two clients will be representative of that kind of population in America. What are you going to do about it? Usually during my lectures, I like to take people to some bottomless, unknown to them area. Why? Because I think the trip to unknown is really adventurous and exciting. And then there are things in this life that we know, things that we know we don't know, and things that we don't know we don't know. That's usually where we are going. But you will ask me, where is our bias located? In which of those segments? I have to draw for our bias a special segment, because bias will be represented by things that we think that we know, but in fact we are mistaken. And recognizing our own bias is one of the most difficult parts in our profession. Ask yourself, when your clients are coming to your therapy room, what would be the most difficult part for them in the whole process of therapy? And the answer probably would be their recognition of their own responsibility for the result in their life that they are unhappy with. Because happy people are not coming to therapy. It's only those people who are unhappy, and in addition to that, they want some changes. So your clients will have to go through the painful process of accepting reality and recognizing their own mistakes. Bias is pretty much the same for the therapist. We have to understand our own mistakes, our reliance on the information that we think we know, but it might be not exactly accurate. Let me explain to you what I mean. Look at this slide. What do you see here? You see a list of so-called 100 schools of thought in ancient China. And you will see that that list starts from Confucianism and Daoism. And by the way, it's me who highlighted it. They usually used without highlighting, being kind of included in the list of all thoughts. And then some of specialists in China, they will tell you there were hundreds of competing school of thought in China. And that would be an example of a biased statement. Why? What's wrong with the statement? The problem is that in China, there was no competing schools. In China, people would never choose a school of thought specifically to go and study that particular school. They will try to find a teacher instead, not the school, but the teacher. And they wouldn't care in general what kind of school of thought he's following, if at all. Usually, they will be teaching or rather preaching something that they learned through their own life experience, share their understanding of life, of the universe, and of the society, because that would be the topic of concentration of interest of Chinese population at that time. Keep in mind, when we are talking about ancient Chinese China, we are talking approximately about the period of 500 BC. That will correspond to the period of Roman Empire and Western civilization and development of many known to us and familiar to us philosophers such as Aristotle, Socrates, Plato, and many others. They've been concerned with completely different issues. They've been discovering who I am, what is the reality, how the reality is real, how the reality is real to me. Am I a real part of the reality? They've been concentrating on that and stagnating with those issues for centuries. Until recently, in 18th or 19th centuries, they started discovering much more sophisticated things that were discovered by Chinese philosophers about 10,000 years ago, maybe more. Why I'm saying that? Because the first written sources providing us with the evidence of their thoughts will be dated approximately 5,000 years ago. But before that, there was an oral tradition that existed for another approximately 5,000 years. So whatever is there in Chinese philosophy, deep, sophisticated, amazing, it was discovered by Chinese people 10,000 years ago, maybe more, and we still cannot completely grasp it. The question is why? Because we have completely different mentality. And when I say our, I refer to us as a Western civilization. Civilization based on Judeo-Christian religious concept. We have a concept of single deity, one God. And that predetermines all our mentality, regardless whether you believe in God or you don't. How come, you will say? And I'll tell you, we might have agnostics in our society, we might have atheists in our society, we might have Christians, Muslims, Jewish, we can even have Satanists, and they all have their opinion about their relation with God. For example, agnostics, they're in doubt. They're saying there is no evidence that God exists. Atheists, they're saying, I don't believe in God. So again, their denial of God is related to God. Satanists, they're not worshiping God, they're worshiping Satan, denying God, not denying his existence, because without existence of God, there would be no Satanists. Without existence of God, there would be no atheists. They would have nothing to deny. There would be no agnostic. They would have nothing to be in doubt about. So it's very confusing situation in our country. Plus, we have a lot of immigrants coming with their own ideas about God and their own religions, and it's all mixed here. And yet, our society still can be called Judeo-Christian because the whole entire mentality, how we see world, how we perceive situation, how we process reality is based on our understanding of God and main concepts. I'll give you an example. When you are doing your business project, and I'm sure everyone sitting here had at least one opportunity in your life to present some kind of project somewhere, and you will probably concentrate on three parts. First, that would be preamble, then that would be the matter of the project, and then it would be conclusion. Three. Why three? Because we do everything in three steps, subconsciously, without even recognizing that it's related to the Trinity, to the concept of Trinity of the Christianity. We do everything in three steps. Look at our therapy process. Think about the stages of CBT, for example. What it would be: exploration, insight, and action. Three steps. Why? Because it's comfortable, because it's logical, because it's how we do things subconsciously. But we have to recognize that subconsciously the three steps of anything is related to our understanding of a single deity. That's how we brain, that's how we think, and I can give you a bunch of other examples, but I don't want to waste our time on that right now. So let's move on. Now, in China, they don't have that concept. If they don't believe in God, it's because they don't have the concept of God, and they don't have to resolve that issue. If there is God or there is no God, or what's my relation with the God, they don't care, because the roots of Chinese culture is going into shamanism. There was no single deity, there were powers of nature, and that affects their understanding of life, their understanding of pathology, including psychopathology, their approach to the treatment of psychopathology, their approach to everything. So their number would be not three. In China, they are not stuck with those numbers. They love other numbers. For example, they love the concept of yin and yang, and that would be the concept of dual process, so they will love number two. They have 5 elements of life and they will love number five, but it doesn't matter. However, even mathematically we are different. Not talking about some other much more complicated things. So let me start from analyzing our grounds for bias in our perception of China and then we will understand how that affects our therapeutic potential in a therapy room. What do we know about China? First of all, I want you to look at the map. China is a huge, big country, and it's facing in part Pacific Ocean. That would be facing Alaska, and it's located on Asian continent. Believe it or not, geographical location is reflecting in our mentality. It affects how we think, it affects how our society was developed, and affects our understanding of the rest of the world. And China, for many centuries, was really, really disconnected with the rest of the world. Because from American continent, for example, or Australia or Africa, it was divided not only by the distance, but also by the ocean, different oceans. From the European part of the continent, China was divided by the huge, huge distance and lack of roads. There was no transportation. So for many centuries, China was developing within itself, being influenced and influencing only their actual neighbors. Disconnect with the Western civilization was important. China somehow developed absolutely original, authentic, its own civilization, science, and massive of knowledge that is completely and conceptually different from European civilization. Plus, China is located in very soft and comfortable climate conditions. Most part of China, they enjoy good summer, wonderful spring, and pleasant fall, which is good for agriculture. So that country was always having enough to feed their entire population. And that's why they didn't go through the stages of development of human society, which somehow we believe is mandatory pretty much for each and every country. What we believe that primitive society is going through the agriculture phase, and then it's turning either to feudal society, or some countries going through the slavery, and then they go to the capitalism. China didn't have feudalism in that classical way, because feudalism means that there is some master who owns the land and he's providing the right to use that land in exchange for the servitude. Slavery would be involuntary servitude for the right to exist, basically, and China didn't have neither one. They had that agriculture society and the business that was run by the families. And families were hiding traditions from other families, but because of that beneficial climate situation in the country, they had so much food that they didn't have to work very hard for it. And as a result, for many centuries, China had very healthy and very happy, well-fed population that worked less and had higher level of lifestyle than European people. European people didn't know about it. They couldn't reach China to see what's going on over there. They've been always suffering because of that crowded population, because they didn't have enough land. We had slavery in the United States, and then we moved to the capitalism, and China instead moved to the communism. So now we have no idea what kind of social formation China actually is. Some of our commentators, and especially on the TV, they will call China communist China, and they will say that communist country represents a threat to us. Why those statements are happening? Because people who are saying that, they don't understand Chinese philosophy, never learned it, never been exposed to that, never probably been even thinking about it. But what they're doing, they use their logic and their understanding of the world. So they're projecting their own worldview into China, and they consider what they will do in that particular situation, and then they're assigning that desire to China. That's what's happening, and that is the mechanism of the bias. Don't fall in that trap, because it is a trap. So about China, is that a communist society if they have a free market? because communism is denying private enterprise. So now, is that a capitalist country then? We have tons of articles written by the Harvard graduates and well-educated people from Princeton, from all over the world, from high-level universities, that they're discussing the issue whether the China is a capitalist country because they have free enterprise and they don't know the solution. They don't know the answer. So it might be capitalist, it might be communist, or might be something else. And we don't know how to label it. The problem is we operate only within the level of references familiar to our society. So because we don't have a special term for what they have as the society, we are confused and we are keeping that country in between capitalism and communism, which is like a huge big stretch, and it's basically two equations of completely different social conditions. So now we understand that. Let's move to the economic power. I'm wondering how you perceive China. You're probably familiar with the statement that China represents a second world economy after the United States. What you don't know that they took that position just recently, in the past 30 years. Something happened and they started developing really fast. But in 80s, do you know what were three dreams of the Chinese people? We have our American dream, and that would be nice house, nice car, and good job. For Chinese people, it was impossible dream only 30 some years ago. What they wanted to have, they wanted to have a bike, was a dream, Chinese dream. They wanted to have a washing machine and they wanted to have a TV set. Those three items, very tangible items, they were representative of the Chinese dream. That's how difficult life was in China. And now compare that information with what I just said, that for several centuries, China lived much better than Europe. And they had more food, less work, and more freedom. So what happened? At which point of their history and why actually they fell behind? And that's exactly because of their philosophy of Confucianism and Daoism. Because Confucianism is very inflexible philosophy. Confucianism requires strict compliance with the traditions, rules, and rituals. And if you violate something, then you are just outlawed. And you can be punished in the most severe way. You do not belong to the civilized society if you are violating your rules and traditions. Eventually, at some point, European people, hungry and looking for some new way of earning money and making profit, came to China and they brought their skills that they acquired already at the beginning of their capitalistic formation. They came to the country of agriculture construct and family-run businesses, and they brought the concept of international enterprise with them. When you can have store with the same name and buy the same things throughout the whole country. Chinese business at that time was unable to compete. And also because they are resisting change and they don't like any change, they want to follow traditions. They fell behind. They lost in that competition. And I've been losing until they adjusted. How they adjusted? They actually realized that that new tendencies that they've been resisting became a new tradition actually. And then when they became a tradition for them, Chinese population were able to accept it. Once they accepted it and started using it with their energy and determination, they were able to achieve almost unachievable for them in 80s of just last century. And in 30 years only, in the life of one generation, the very undeveloped country became a second economic power of the world. It should tell you something about the energy and power of the spirit of Chinese population. Never underestimate their determination. Now, I've been talking about competing schools. They're not competing. They have couple main tendencies in their philosophy, and that would be divided between two main areas of concern. One area will be concerned with the relationship of me as a person, I and the universe. And the second group of thoughts will be concerned with the relationship of me as a person, I and the government. And that's it. You can take any school of thought in China and it will be related either to one or another branch. That's all there is. And for us, people, representative of the society that is based on a fierce competition, it's not understandable. We basically don't understand how it is that two schools are not competing with each other. Because we have to compete to succeed. And why? Because of our fundamental attachment to Judeo-Christian philosophy. And about philosophy and religion. We very often call Confucianism a religion. Why? Confucius was not a god and he's not a god. But we cannot understand that there might be some philosophy that everyone is praising, that everyone is seeing that main figure of that philosophy as a national hero, that there are places that the Chinese people call temple, and they go and praise that person. How it is not religion if it sounds and looks like religion? If we build a statue to our Jesus Christ, and it's one of the biggest statues in the world, in Brazil, for example, and Chinese people, they built the huge, bigger statue to Confucius, how it is different from a deity? It must be their god, so let's call it religion, because maybe if they don't call it religion, they simply don't understand what it is for them. But we white people will understand better, so we'll call it religion, because some of our scientists, by the way, in Western society, telling us that science confirms that our DNA has particular gene that they call God gene, that presumes our need to believe in God. And if it's true, and I don't know, because I'm not a biologist and I'm not a scientist from that point of view, even though I have my doctorate in psychology, and psychology considered to be a science. Regardless of that, I cannot tell you if that statement is true or not. Because if it's true, then apparently Chinese people, they're different species. We consider ourselves Homo sapiens, so they probably are not, because they don't have that gene and they don't have the simple deity concept in their society. And that's why they think and live differently. Now, let's talk about how it is different and why that concept of single deity is so important. I'll show you another slide. So, what is single deity? It's one God, right? And the major world religions like Islam, Judaism, and Christianity, they all have single deity. They have their own book. Islam, they have Quran. Judaism, they have Torah. And Christianity, they have Bible. And that Bible describes the life of the deity and provides some situations that's supposed to be conclusive about what to do, what not to do in this life. Chinese don't have that kind of books. They don't have that kind of authority over their morality. So are they winning or losing because of that? Let's see. And by the way, one of the major disputes in Christianity would be whether we have a free will or we don't. And that's a big issue that affects our whole life. Because any attempt of divination or magic or any other activity, I don't know, tarot cards or anything like that, considered by church to be a sin. And it's prohibited and condemned. Why? Because they are saying that everything exists at the same time. Our past, our present, and our future, it all exists. Where is then the free will? If my life is predetermined, as it's written somewhere in the book, my future exists already right now when I'm talking to you. I just don't know how my life will unfold. So I have an illusion of free will. I think that I'm doing my choices, but I'm not. I'm just following the route that was one day described for me, created for me, and nothing I can do about it. What religion is telling us? Religion is telling us that we have a free will because God loves us and He is giving us an opportunity to create our own life by being ignorant about our future. So as long as we don't know what's happening, we think that our choices are really our choices. and it's our free will choices, and that's why we have a free will. So it's complicated. I'm not giving you the answer right now. I'm just trying to describe a problem and gravity of the situation for us living in that society, regardless whether you believe in God or you don't. So now, how about Chinese people? They don't have a single deity. They don't have predetermined future. And they don't have a divination when they can look into the future and see what will happen. Instead, they have an amazing book and they call it I Ching, or the Book of Changes, that is incredible. And it has more than 10,000 years of history. And that book is used as a divination by Chinese people, but of different kind. It's not telling you what will happen to you in the future. Instead, it gives you guidance how to achieve what you want in the future. Do you see the difference? In Chinese philosophy, they are actually the owners of their decisions and the owners of their own future. They can decide how it would be, and they have a special guidance that can give them advice what to do. To give you some idea how significant it is, I can tell you that one of our main celebrities in psychology, Carl Jung, he was fascinated with that book. Carl Jung was fascinated with the Chinese and Asian theology and philosophy in general. And that's how he invented his archetypes, because it was based on Tibetan mythology. And that's why he's less famous than Mr. Freud, his opponent, because Freud was core of our mentality. Freud was representing the idea common to our society. And that's why we can object to him, we can like him or not like him, we can criticize him, but nothing we can do without him. And he is the forefather of our modern day psychology, because he made amazing discoveries based on the set of mind of the entire Western population. Jung, who was maybe equal in his intellectual ability to Freud, is not that popular, because he based his ideas on the mythology having roots in another mentalities, in Asian mentality, in Chinese mentality, and it was not really accepted by the Western civilization. They've been curious about it, they've been always fascinated with it, but they never actually accepted him as a forefather of modern psychology, right? No, he has his reputation, he has a place in the history of psychoanalysis, but he is nowhere near the fame of Mr. But by having said that, I want to tell you that Carl Jung was actually using the Book of Changes, the I Ching book. Let me show you that book, and of course not that book, it's a modern publication, it's English translation, but he was using that book at his sessions with his clients, and he believed that it's not just a deviation. He described that book as a synchronization between your lifespan and your moment right now with the tendencies of the universe. So somehow the magic and the wisdom of that book helps you to synchronize your question and your desire with the universe, and universe is giving you an advice. The difference and the deviation is telling you something. Chinese people are looking for a way to achieve their desires, and Western people are looking for an answer. What will happen to me tomorrow? And that's why I will never, ever do, for example, any tarot reading for myself. Why? Because when some random woman, man, will be giving me that card disposition, and they will be reading those cards for me, they will be imprinting into my brain their picture of my future. And if it's unpleasant reading, then my future will be unpleasant. And by the way, nothing I will be able to do about it because it will be already embedded into my mind during that tarot reading session. That's my understanding of it. Church is looking at it like it's a sin and you will be punished. Now, about sin. Because we have that single deity and we have that God as a picture of the ideal man, the aspiration of a Westerner would be always to become an ideal man or ideal woman for that matter. And it's unachievable because we sin when we start breathing. Yes, our God is forgiving our sins on certain terms and conditions. So now we're supposed to do this, feel that, and comply with certain rules. Where is your freedom and what that is? For example, how can you achieve anything if it's unachievable, if you are sinful? You have to overcome your shortcomings. You have to struggle and suffer in order to suppress your sinful desires and become a better person. That's why struggling is the main concept of our life. We have to struggle, we have to suffer because happiness is impossible unless you pay price for it, and price would be your struggle. Look at our art, look at our movies, read our books, and figure out that no person, regardless whether he believes in God or not and what his religion, no person can achieve anything in this life without struggle. That's what we believe in, right? Surprisingly, Chinese people don't believe in it. They can live their life without struggle, be completely happy, and achieve what they want. Because their ideal man would be not their God, but probably their teacher, who is not taking them on his own journey. Their teachers are never saying, follow me. Their teachers are saying, don't follow me. It's too dangerous. I'm not taking responsibility for you. You will go that road only when you feel you are ready and you are ready to take responsibility for yourself. So what Chinese people believe? They believe that there is immortality and there is way to live forever through spiritual enlightenment. And only teachers know how to achieve that. But it's very dangerous because you have to go through the certain altered state of mind, and to facilitate that state of mind, not only you have to meditate, but you have also to take some special herbal remedies, and they have pill of immortality that sometimes they cook that pill for several generations, maybe more than 100 years. They boil something that put in that pot some new herbs all the time. They boil it, they boil it, they dry it for hundreds of years. And then when the pill is ready, who knows what is in that pill? It can bring you to a different place, different dimension, or it can kill you. And that's why teacher will never tell you, follow me, because he will take that pill when he's ready, when he is in complete control of his mind, his body, his reactions. And body, by the way, is not considered to be something that is with you forever. Body is a container for your spirit, for your energy that you can use for certain periods of time, and then when it's like worn, you can drop it and use something else. Maybe you can go in another body, you'll be given another container, or you will go to another dimension and come back as another being. That's the freedom they have in immortality, and they don't have sense of guilt. We're always guilty because of our sins, because without recognizing our sins we cannot get the forgiveness, and it's the cycle. Guilty trip is the thing that is causing depression of most of your clients, and they're coming to you and they're dealing with that, and they're expecting your help, and you're trying to help them, and you get them out of one guilty trip and so they can go to another. It's a vicious cycle, which you cannot get rid of it, regardless whether your client believes in God or not. Why? Because your client is the member of the society that is wired with those thoughts. We have guilt, we have sin, we have suffering and struggle. Now, nothing of that belongs to Chinese. They have nothing of that. Instead, they have free will, immortality, and absolute permission to do whatever they want in their life, with their body. For example, sexuality. They are considering sexuality as a part of their living existence. And for them, sexuality would be a way of treat their pathology. For example, if you have some disease, they will prescribe you particular sexual position, and you have to try it with different partners because one partner might be good for you energetically or not. And if it's not, then that position will not work and will not heal you. And you will know that within 24 hours after the sexual session. So if it works and you feel better, fine, you can continue with that partner for a while, trying different positions that are prescribed to you by certain books. Or if it doesn't work really for you, you have to change and get another partner, and then another until you get the right partner who is helping, facilitating well-being of your body. Now, think about cheating, concept of cheating in Chinese family. Please note that recommendations of sexual activity is not discriminatory. It's all inclusive. It goes similarly for women and for men. So women can do that, men can do that. There is no prohibition. Also, they see a food as a part of feeding your body with the necessary energy. There is no starving. There is no fasting. You can eat whatever you want, whenever you want, according to the needs of your body. And needs of your body will be described in a different book, and I'll refer to that in a few minutes. So, think about it. They have free will, they have freedom of choice, and they are owners of their future. They can eat what they want, they can drink what they want, they can sleep with whoever they please, and they don't experience any guilt about it. So they have no limitations that we have. Imagine that you are sitting in front of the client, coming from that mentality to you, and you are looking at him, and he's telling you, for example, I'm struggling with my parents. That's the client that I had. Very nice, beautiful, young Chinese girl who was born in America. She's second generation for immigrants, and her parents, the first generation. They are very intellectual. They both work in some very complicated industries. They came here 30 years ago, and they established their own careers here. They got American education, but they came here with mentality, Chinese mentality that was already formed. And now, young girl, she's exposed to both worlds, to Chinese mentality at home and to Western mentality in her life outside home, in her college and her friends, everywhere. And she's struggling because she cannot forgive her mother, because her mother forgave cheating of her father. So father of the girl cheated on mother of the girl, admitted to the cheating, and mother was okay with that, forgave him, and there was no consequences. Now girl is confused. She's significantly depressed because according to her, moral values that she inherited from the society, even though she is not religious at all, she believes that her mother is weak, pathetic woman, cannot protect herself. It's her duty to protect her mother, but her mother doesn't offer protection, so she doesn't love her. And the whole big pile of confusions coming around it. What would you do? She came to me from a different therapist, and the other therapist told her that Chinese people have a tendency, have a tradition not to express their feelings. So perhaps she is misjudging her mother, and her mother probably is suffering, but because of that Chinese tradition to suppress emotion, she's not showing that emotion. And by constantly talking to her mother about that issue, she's like opening the wound that starts healing. And probably she is preventing mother from healing, and she's causing her pain, and she needs to let mother alone and just understand, have more empathy for her mother because mother is suffering and suppressing her pain, probably because she loves her daughter and doesn't want to destroy the family because of that. Would you agree? Well, we tried a different approach. I was trying to explain to my client that Chinese mentality is very different from Western mentality, and she is a lucky child that has the best of two worlds, but she needs to understand her Chinese roots better, and that cheating in Chinese culture will be considered differently, and it will be triggering different emotions, not similar to the emotions that Western people expected to experience in the situation of cheating. Let's say it might be frustration of a normal woman of Western society when her husband is cheating. And you probably seen a lot of situations in couples suffering and struggling with that issues. And this is part of their existence because remember, struggling and suffering, that's how we achieve what we want. In Chinese culture, sex is a remedy, it's a medicine, it's not a cheating. The guy admitted to that. There was no scandal or anything, and they continue living happily ever after because, according to their mentality, he didn't betray the family. So, why any feelings of despair, frustration, pain, anger should be triggered in that woman? It's not that she is suppressing the emotions, she's not experiencing our emotions, she's experiencing her own emotions. Believe it or not, it was extremely helpful. And my client was able to restore her good relationship with her parents without having any reservations and looking at her parents from completely different view. That's how it's important, and that's where your bias as a therapist might be detrimental to your client, and you have to realize it. Now, I want to mention just one more important topic. There are so many things to talk about in regard to that, but we don't have time. However, I want to mention that the concept of morality is different as well. Like, for example, being selfish is not a good quality in our society. People who don't have or manifest enough empathy to other people can be considered a sociopath. We have the diagnosis for people who are not experiencing our emotions how we believe he's supposed to experience that. Now compare that with the Chinese concept of selfishness. It's sometimes a mandatory quality of the teacher because teacher, you remember I told you, is not taking you on his trip to immortality with that dangerous pill that can kill him. He's not taking you on that trip. So when teacher feels that he's ready to take a final step in his development and enlightenment, he is leaving behind everything he had, his family, his kids, his wife, his friends, his students, and going alone on that trip to another dimension of enlightenment, and not taking anyone with him, and doesn't care about people left behind. That would be a very selfish move. And their teachers are doing that. And it's absolutely accepted by the society because this is part of their tradition and this is part of their achievement of the highest possible level of self determination, immortality. In our tradition, people are really dying. Our life is very short and we are born to die. And there is a limitation of our life. We live whatever life expectation is, 70 years, 80 years today. In America, different for men and women, or maybe 60, and before it was 40 or 30. People were dying earlier. So you die and nobody ever come back to tell you what's happening after that, except Christ, of course, who was resurrected. So immortality is unavailable and we don't know what will happen then. The only time that we have on earth is the moment from birth to death, and that is unavoidable. Very pessimistic concept if you think about it. And during that period of time, You're supposed to struggle and suffer because you are sinful and you must feel guilty, otherwise you will be called sociopath. Is it fair? And that's why some of great philosophers of 18th and 19th century, they started questioning religion, not the Christ, but the church, from the point of view why they are teaching this particular thing, and is that a real teaching of the Christ? So they've been saying basically that religion is used by the elite that is free from the moral ethic norms of that religion. They're free, they are not following themselves, and they are not punished for that. But they are imposing that view on the people, on the folks, so they can control the society and keep us in slavery, basically, throughout our lives, without us even realizing that we are slaves of the rules imposed on us. So that's why our science is telling us that's right, that's correct. You have a gene, you have a God gene, you have to believe in God, you have to follow those rules. And who knows? Maybe it's not exactly what Jesus was preaching, because he never wrote a line. He didn't write a book. And it's interesting that two main heroes in Chinese philosophy, they also didn't write anything. Or maybe they did, but there is no proof of that. Now we are going to those two huge personalities, Confucius and Lao Tzu. So we have two amazing figures in Chinese mythology and history and philosophy, Lao Tzu and Confucius. Who are they? Confucius apparently was a human being, and it's a real person. We know his date of birth and we know his life history. And I remember his date of birth because he was born September 28th and my birthday is September 29th, which makes both of us Libra, but it's not Chinese concept, so I'm not going over there. But Confucius was a real person and he lived on earth. He was a teacher, he was an interesting personality, struggling with his mommy and daddy issue according to Freud. And because of those issues, we have his life story that inspires hundreds of generations of Chinese people. What about Lao Tzu? Was he a real person? And there is no answer. It's much more legendary figure than a real person. We don't know if he ever lived. We don't know if he ever wrote anything, or maybe not. His name is associated with another book. I'll show you that book. They call it Tao Te Ching or Tao Te Ching, and that's why the philosophy attached to his name is called Taoism or Daoism, which is the same. It's not two different theories. It's the same. It just depends on how you pronounce that word Tao. And I'm not speaking Chinese, so I cannot tell you for sure. So I'm saying what I'm saying. It's Daoism, and the book clearly Tao Te Ching. So Lao Tzu. And we have mentioning in Chinese sources about Lao Tzu related to different period of time. As I said, approximately they live at the same time with Confucius, because Confucius said to his students that he actually went to see Lao Tzu and he had a personal meeting with him, which puts Lao Tzu in the same time frame as Confucius. But we also have some other mentioning of Lao Tzu that puts him much earlier in different dynasties' life and different geographical locations. So it's hard to say. And nobody was witnessing meeting of those two, of Confucius and Lao Tzu. We can only rely on the words of Confucius, who again didn't write anything about it. We don't have his diary or anything. We have just a note made by one of his students who said our teacher was going to see another teacher. And when he come back, he said something very spiritual. He said, when people hunt, they need a net to catch a bird. They need a sparrow to catch a fish. But there is one animal that nobody can catch because he's mighty powerful. That would be the dragon. And I met today with the dragon. He was referring to Lao Tzu. So Lao Tzu in Chinese tradition is perceived as dragon of wisdom. Sometimes he is painted that way because dragon is considered by Chinese one of the most powerful creatures ever. What happened at that meeting, we don't know. What we know for sure, that if that meeting happened, the only reason for that might be the desire of Confucius to verify certain traditions and rituals with Lao Tzu, who was the authority in their traditions and rituals. And both of them had their roots in the shamanism. Shamanism is basically set of particular traditions and rituals related to the nature. We need to understand that shamanism sounds a little bit witchy in our English language, but at that time in China, only elite could be attached to shamanism. Only people of aristocrats can get training of shamans, be initiated into shamanism, and be able to perform certain rituals. So what happened with Confucius? He was born from a very old father by a very young mother. His father was 70 and his mother was about 17 years. That marriage is strange because in some sources they call it sham marriage. Sham marriage understood in English language is a fake marriage. It never happened. But it's not the meaning in the Chinese sources. They basically consider it to be shameful for father, an old man, to get a second wife at that old age. And the first wife, that was not alive, the first family by his first wife didn't appreciate it. And when father was dead, young wife was kicked out of the house and she had very difficult time raising her son. Father, 70 years old, aristocrat and very high positioned guy, he died when Confucius was only 3 years old. So Confucius never had a father-son relationship. And that was something that he always wanted. Perhaps if he would have a normal childhood with a father who would be raising him, he will not have a Confucianism as a theory and philosophy. Because the whole entire theory of Confucianism is based on the desire of Confucius to have a good father-son relationship. So he was basically concerned with the relationship of the citizen and the society. And he was saying that it should be like father-son, parent-child relationship, that the government of the country must take care of their citizens like they are their own children. They have to take care of them, be attentive, help them to grow, help them to get education, and protect them from any danger. In response to that, citizens are supposed to love, cherish, and respect their government according to the rules and traditions of the old time. Pretty much, I gave you the concept of Confucianism. There are tons and tons of books written about Confucianism. You can read it all, or you can read one, or you can read whatever you want. But no matter what you read, I want you to remember that was the ground for the whole entire theory to start. And sometimes, and it's like extremely misunderstood in our interpretation of Confucianism. They rely on the sentence, very famous citation from Confucius, who never wrote anything. There is a sentence assigned to him when he's saying, treat everyone the way you want yourself to be treated. What that means? They're saying it's a humanistic principle. They're saying with person with that concept will never hurt someone. Okay, if that's true, how would you consider the situation when Confucius gave an order to kill a person, to execute a person? For what? At that point of his life, Confucius was serving as some medium level state official, being kind of secretary of the state, kind of, and being responsible for review of all the correspondence. And there was a letter written by a guy who addressed the emperor in certain way, which was not the proper way, according to Confucius, to address the emperor. So what he did, he ordered to execute that guy. Now, tell me, is that really humanistic act? Don't treat anyone the way you don't want to be treated? Or maybe he wanted to be treated that way. Maybe any disrespect to the government which would be associated by him with his father would be a crime. Not sin, but crime. So what's happening with that kind of philosophy? When you are in compliance with the rules and traditions, you are treated well. When you are violating rules and traditions, now you are outlaw. Anything and everything is a fair game. You can be killed and that's fine. It's okay. Nobody will feel anything about it. Because that's the only way to treat you when you violating the rules. I don't know how humanistic it sounds to you. It doesn't sound humanistic to me. And I know that it was not an accidental act in the life of Confucius, because there was another accident when he was present at some celebration of the emperor, and there was a performance done by some artists. And one of the artists approached emperor to the distance a little bit shorter than would be considered appropriate by Confucius. What he said? He said that guy should be executed. We don't know about that history, how that unfolded, whether the guy was or wasn't executed. The history didn't tell us. But apparently, his anger toward anyone violating any rules that he has in mind was enormous and pretty much unlimited. Not really humanist. So that was Confucius. He was complying with all rules and traditions in his life. That would be his way to show his love to his mother, because his mother died when she was only 40. Confucius was 23 at the time. And he loved her dearly because she was the one who was giving him life and support and the only family he had. Oh, then he was married and he has his own children. But it's another story. By the way, he chose a wife that was resembling his mother and was pretty much of the age of his mother when his mother was gave birth to him. So there is a lot of mommy issue in that story. And when we're talking about emotions of Chinese people that are allegedly suppressing their emotions, it's not true. They just experience and manifest those emotions differently. So what did Confucius when his mother died? He was burning her for 3 years, according to the tradition. Her mother was buried, but it was a temporary place. Why? Because according to the tradition, she should be buried by her husband. But when Confucius' father died, Confucius was only 3 years old, so he had no idea where is the grave of his father, and he spent several years of his life researching that, searching for the grave, trying to find it, non-stop, relentlessly, and eventually he found it. When he found it, he removed his mother from her temporary place of rest and established her grave by the grave of his father. And that was his way to say, I love you to his mom. Think about the level of energy of love in that action. Think about the emotions that are attached to that. And think about our preconception that Chinese people don't have any emotions, or they are not experiencing that, or they're suppressing their emotions. No, they have emotions. They're experiencing their emotions in the fullest of their abilities. They just manifest it differently. Please keep that in mind every time you are dealing with the Chinese client. I can give you an example. I had a client, Chinese client, who was in entertainment industry doing movie projects actually. Young person who was not born here. He came with his family, and his family was his father, his mother, two sisters. Mother was pretty young woman, and she never been sick. And suddenly she collapsed and was delivered to the hospital, and now she's in coma. And he came to me and he said, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to live. I don't know why I'm not experiencing what people expect me to experience. I don't know how to work with those people because they feel sorry for me, and I don't want them to feel sorry. I want them to feel energized because I need to work and I need to finish the project. But if I'll do that, they will lose respect to me because they expect me to collapse right now and experience sorrow and depression, and I'm not there. But also about my mother, I don't have any certainty. I don't know what future holds, and I have a lot of fear about it. So he was confused. He was transferred to me from another therapist, and he said when he came to another therapist, he said he doesn't have any certainty. Therapist decided to help and used that CBT logic, and they said that there is a certainty, you just don't want to admit it. You have to admit the reality. There is a certainty. There are three ways how your mother can end up. She can die soon, being in coma. She can get out of coma, get healthy, live a long life, and die in few years, 20, 30, whatever. And the third possibility, she will get out of coma, she will be very sick and will die, but that would be a period full of suffering. So you have to accept it. There would be no uncertainty in his life. And he said when he heard that, he was like horrified because he never was planning his future in that particular very logical way. He was always looking at the future like a thing that is in his hands. Now he felt like future is out of his hands. He has no effect on it. And it was the most difficult feeling he ever experienced in his life. Plus, there was that confusion at work where he wanted to work with people, but they've been like, oh, it's okay, just relax. We understand what you're going through. And he was like, I want to work. What we did a lot of meditations, and I used that I Ching book with that guy because certainty that he was looking for was not about what will happen to his mother, but he wanted to know what would be his best way of action, basically to be a better man for his parents, his sisters, and his coworkers. And we opened that book and we received a guidance for him. And he was meditating on a daily basis, trying to remove from his vision of the future that certainty given to him by CBT practitioner, because he wanted to take his future back under his control. And we were able to succeed with that and reestablish the balance of mental energy in that guy. And he was able to complete his movie project, make his money, and his mom actually got out of coma and got really, really healthy eventually. But this is the way how two different therapists are approaching the same situation with the same client. And client has that specificity of Chinese mentality that we have to consider when we are analyzing the case. So this is an example for you to consider. Now, when we are talking about Confucius, we need to understand that he was all about shamanism. Shamanism was the root that he denied for himself, even though his mother put a lot of efforts to make sure that he will get the education that he deserves as the heir of aristocratic person. And he would have a higher position in the society should he choose that way. He might be ruling maybe some empire or who knows, but he wanted to serve his country on a lower position because he wanted to experience those feelings, son and father, that he never experienced in his childhood. Now, when he came to Lao Tzu, keep in mind, Lao Tzu was older, so probably that daddy issue was present even at that meeting. What could he ask Lao Tzu about? He could ask him probably about traditions and rituals, because Lao Tzu was that shamanistic person, and he was initiated, and he was representing the whole entire big, huge stream of traditions going back many, many thousand years. What he was saying about himself, that he is not the one who developed that, he is one who's transmitting those traditions into the modern society. What do you know about him? Very little. We know that he was working as a bookkeeper for some emperor. As a bookkeeper, he probably had a lot of access to different books, and books hold the wisdom of the time. That's one thing. Another thing, that at some point of his life, he became very, very frustrated with the way the history was developing, the society was developing, and in frustration, he was leaving his country and going through the border, and some border guard stopped him and they had a conversation. And at the time of the conversation, Lao Tzu allegedly gave him that book that I show you, Tao Te Ching. And now this book that consists of 81 quatrains, like short poetry, that book is the cornerstone of Taoist philosophy. What what do you think should be in that book? Let me read to you some short quatrain so you will have your own opinion about Taoism. Right? Let me read it. Governing a great state is like cooking small fish. Let the kingdom be governed according to the Tao, and the demands of the departed will not manifest their spiritual energy. It is not that those mans have not that spiritual energy, but it will not be employed to hurt man. It is not that it could not hurt man, but neither does the ruling sage hurt them. When those two do not injuriously affect each other, their good influences converge into the virtue of the Tao. 81 quatrains of that kind. What did you understand? And that's a big question, because teaching in Chinese tradition is very different from teaching how we understand it here. How do I know? I've been going through the Oriental School of Medicine, and all our professors were Chinese. So I remember the class of meditation. We had our professor coming to class, not saying a word, opening the door, and going and collapsing into that meditative position, and being in some altered state of mind for 40 minutes in front of us. Not saying a word, not saying follow me. You remember, their teachers will never tell you follow me, because it's dangerous where I go. You can decide for yourself. If you want to go that way, you have to have your own experiences. So we would collapse next to him without even understanding what to think. And then we were thinking. And that was one of the most amazing experiences I ever had in my life. But you can also ask questions. Our Western way of teaching would be a dialogue with your professor. You will listen and you will ask questions and you will get the answers. In Chinese tradition, you cannot ask anything because all answers are within you. You just have to get there. So what's happening with that quatrain, if you read it, what you will understand? Maybe you will see some wisdom in it, maybe not. Maybe you will see some beauty in it, maybe not. Any lay, normal Chinese person will understand it the same way as you do. Then you have a second layer of understanding when you read some analysis of researchers, and they will explain to you what the writer was referencing to, and you will get a deeper meaning of that. But that would be the end if you don't have a teacher. If you have a teacher, you'll get to the third layer of understanding, and that third level is a secret that is hidden from the normal people, because that would be something related to your transitioning to another world, to your transitioning to another dimension, to your enlightenment, to the extent you can travel from this world and another world and go back, not just staying over there. Like we Christians, when we die, we die. And only Christ was resurrected. But Chinese people can go to the world that is behind our death and can come back and have experiences of this life and another life. And that is only possible if you know the secret. And that secret is within your teacher. And your teacher will teach you if he feels that you deserve. So that's basically the concept. And why I'm talking about it, because everything related to the Chinese understanding of your relationship with the universe will represent the Tao philosophy. And Tao philosophy, to me, was really expressed the best in this book. So I have three books here, right? One would be I Ching, the other would be Tao Te Ching, and this one would be the Yellow Emperor Classic of Medicine. And we also believe that it's 5,000 years old. That was the first manuscript about it, but it was in the oral tradition for longer than that. So all of those books, approximately 10 years old or longer. That's how long the tradition and rituals related to it are transferred. I don't have much time. We've already been talking for a long time, and I love the topic, and I can talk forever about it. And I know that I have to stop somewhere, but I don't want to stop without giving you at least the glimpse of the idea of Oriental medicine, because that would be the Tao concept. You have to understand what they mean by relationship with the universe. So let's go to another slide. This is the slide that describes the concept of pathology and psychopathology in Oriental medicine. That would be part of Daoism. They believe that there are 5 elements of life, and that would be water, wood, fire, earth, and metal. Now, what they do, they are assigned to each element particular body part. For example, kidney would be assigned to water, liver would be assigned to wood, heart would be assigned to fire, spleen, which we don't have as a body part, but we understand what it is. Spleen would be assigned to earth, and eventually lung would be assigned to metal. That's not the end. Now they assign emotions and feelings to certain body parts. And we have calm and fear assigned to the kidney, kindness and anger assigned to the liver, love and joy and hate assigned to the heart, trust and openness and worry assigned to the spleen, and courage and sorrow assigned to the lung. I want you to understand that you see how they pair those emotions. They pair the opposites basically. And that is coming from the concept of yin and yang, because yin and yang is misunderstood as well. People think that white and black would represent the yin and yang, and it's not. Yin and yang, it's always two sides of the same. White and black as a colors, they are not two sides of the same. For example, blossom and blossoming flower and dry leaf would be the part of the same tree, and then that would be the opposite, and then it would be part in representation of yin and yang. Or day and night, it would be the same part of 24 hours of the rotation of the earth. So it would be two parts of the same. Now it will be representing yin and yang. Or your young age and elderly age, it would be all parts of one human life, and then it would be representation of yin and yang. So it's not the exact opposite, but it's two different parts of the same subject. And this is part of dialectics. At the beginning, I was saying that Chinese people invented something that we still is not fully comprehending in our life, and they invented that 10,000 years ago, maybe longer. Dialectics would be one of it, because the concept of yin and yang is nothing but dialectics. And dialectics was represented to our philosophy by Hegel in 18th century, and then developed by Marx, who put the whole dialectic subjects, the whole dialectic logic and laws into the concept of communism. And that's another topic. But I just want to tell you one thing that you probably don't know. 3 laws of dialectics on unconscious level were applied by Mr. Freud when he was creating all his theories. And that is topic of another lecture, another subject. It's extremely interesting. So I'll leave it behind. But if you want to listen to me on that issue, ask Dina, and I might arrange some interesting conversation in that. So now, what is happening with that picture? Let's come back to the 5 elements of traditional Chinese medicine. Where is depression here? Let's say depression can be caused by fear. of something, right? So let's go to the water, and there is kidney body part assigned to it. So what might happen here? If someone has kidney stones, for example, that means that the kidney is depleted of water, so it's overheated. And in a language of Chinese Oriental medicine, they will say that kidney qi is blazing up. Qi would be translated as the energy. So what's happening right now? Kidney is overheated, the energy is going through the roof and leaving your body, causing the depletion of the energy at the kidney level. Now, kidney to survive is dragging energy from other body parts that still are healthy, but kidney needs something to calm down, to cool that heat, and therefore is dragging that energy from other body parts, and now the whole entire body is sick and person is feeling very bad, and in addition to that, person is very depressed. So how they approach it? They're saying that we have two energy from the moment of birth. One energy we're getting from our parents, and another energy we're getting from the sky. And through our life, our energy can be depleted because of the influences inside and outside of our body. But if we want to heal person. For example, there is a kidney issue and it's overheated, kidney cheese blazing up. Now we have to calm down that kidney and let kidney stop grabbing energy from other body parts because now they are depleted of energy. How do we do that? We use meridians that coming through our body, and there are some meridians that are giving you some particular energy. It might be cold or hot. Now we need cold energy here to calm down the kidney, and hot energy to other body parts that are depleted of energy and going cold. Now we have certain stimulations and suppressions of energy throughout our meridians. We can use herbs to achieve that. We can use acupuncture to achieve that. And as a result, we will heal the kidney and we also will heal the depression. Their idea of treatment of psychopathology would be related to the disbalance of energy, and the method of treatment would be balancing the energy. One of the best way to do it would be through the meditation. So that would be the concept of Taoism. There are many things that I was unable to cover completely, and especially the Book of Changes that I really want you to read or buy and enjoy maybe for yourself and see how it works. But keep in mind that what they're saying, the binary code that our computer science using to program our computers is first represented in that particular way when we didn't even know the word computer, the humanity. So this is a fascinating topic, and I hope that by listening to me today, you discover something new for yourself. And I was able to bring you to the place where you even didn't know that you didn't know. And maybe to the place where there were things you thought you knew, but it was wrong. If I achieve both of it, I will be very happy. Your feedback would be really appreciated. And right now, I am thanking you for listening, for being with me for that long. And I wish you good luck in all your endeavors.